Welcome to NetWitness 12.5, New Features Training. In this video, we will discuss load balancing feature which enables administrators to distribute agents' load equally across endpoint servers in the environment. When the organizations become larger, they need to add new agents for deployments, and distributing these agents across the endpoint servers becomes difficult. So administrators must download different packages for each endpoint server and use policies to distribute the load based on conditions. Now you only need to download one agent packager and push it to all the endpoint agents based on the defined load and parameters. The load will be equally distributed across endpoint servers. Let's start with the demo now. Go to Admin. Then go to any one of the endpoint servers, then Config. As we see here, we have a new tab, Global Config, which is for the load balancing settings. We have two radio buttons here, disabled and enabled. Here it's mentioned that these settings are applicable for all endpoint servers. When navigating to Endpoint Server 1, this setting is not only for Endpoint Server 1, but this setting is for all the endpoint servers that are available in the deployment. Now let's go to Agent Packager. We have two types of agent packages now. One is the standard packager, and one is the single packager. Previously we used to have only standard packager. In standard packager, we will have endpoint server details of only one particular server. Currently, I am in EPS1, so I will have endpoint server details only of the standard packager. In single packager, what happens is they will have the server details of all the servers available in that particular deployment. This single packager is to handle the load balancing. Now I have two endpoints packager. Then I have two server details in this particular package. Let's go to the standard packager first and download the agent packager. We will go to Downloads and open the agent packager zipped file, then Config folder and select package config.json. Here we see only one server IP and here is the address and one endpoint server IP. So this is the standard package. Let's go to agent packager again and select single packager now. For the single packager, we can have more than one server. When you check the packager config.json file, you find all servers' IPs present. Now I will generate another packager. The download is completed. Let's open the agent packager zipped file. You can see the servers list. Only two servers exist. Here is the first one. And here is the other one. I had two endpoint servers in my deployment and all servers details in the packager.config. This is all about the single package. Now we will go back to the Global Config tab and let's enable the setting. Once enabled, you can see the maximum number of agents per server. You can enter any value between 1 to 50,000. 50,000 is the maximum value that can be set. If you add one more, we'll get a note telling you a maximum of 50,000 is allowed. Also, if I have set it as 10. Now my endpoint server, 10 endpoints, it will allow to have only 10 agents and not more than that. Now two servers exist, each server can have only 10 agents. If I set it to 100, then each server can have 100 agents. For this demo, I will set it to 10 and click Save. After saving it, reload the page and go back to the agent packager. Since the load balancing is enabled, the standard packager is disabled by default. To use the load balancing concept, we are using the single packager because we want the load to be equally balanced, so we don't have to choose which server we want. The single packager will take care of it, and again all the available server details will be there. In the packager.config, all the endpoint server details are available. So once we install this agent, What happens is from all available endpoint servers, randomly a server will be taken over, and our agent will be assigned based on the load. I will start the packager, and I will run another test. Here you can see the server assigned to .39, which is endpoint server 1. Now let's copy another agent into our machine and test to which server it will be assigned. It has been assigned to the master server, which is .45, which is on the UI endpoint server 2.45. So first machine was assigned to endpoint server 1, and the second machine was assigned to endpoint server 2. Then, since there are two endpoint server details in the config, whichever server has fewer nodes that agent will be assigned to. Let's check the machines on the UI, however it takes time to reflect on the UI. Here we see that one of the agents started communicating. There are 2 points to note here. The first one is when the number of agents limit is reached. Here I have set the limit to 10 agents per server, when this limit is reached in both the endpoint servers. What happens is that even though the agent installation goes through, the PS will not be able to manage that agent. Then in that case, the administrator will need that agent to be managed by the endpoint server, and he wants it to be visible on the UI. So, what he has to do is either increase the number of agent limits in the global config page, or he has to delete any of the managed agents used in any one of the endpoint servers. Then, the load of one of the endpoint servers becomes less, and this particular agent, which was installed, will be able to communicate now. What happens in the background is that the newly installed agent will always try to communicate with any of the endpoint servers, however it will say that the load is full. It will retry until there is space in any of the endpoint servers. The second point to remember is if one of the endpoint servers is offline in the deployment. In that case, the generator single packager will not have the offline endpoint server details. Now that I have two endpoint servers, endpoint server 1 and endpoint server 2. Imagine that endpoint server 2 is offline for some reason. Now there will be only endpoint server 1 details in the single packager, and the offline server data will be omitted from the single packager file. So, there will be only one online server data available in that particular packager. The agent will be communicating only to the online endpoint servers, and not to the offline endpoint servers. This is an overview of the load balancing feature. Thank you.